At the beginning of Shining Vale Episode 8, Pat is banging on the wall, trying to get someone's attention to let her out as she's locked in. Rosemary approaches her and tells her she's in grave danger. She tells Pat she is gigantic and has a terrible haircut, but she needs to trust her. She informs her of her son, Elijah, who was a cripple who destroyed her womb. There's one way out, and it involves killing herself. Pat tells her she'll find another way out, and bets her family are looking for her right now. However, Jake clearly isn't, as he's too busy listening to Bob Marley music on the old Walkman. All of a sudden, the fridge gets pushed open and it's Pat trying to get out. She says she found Roxy's ball and asks Jake to call Daddy, and then collapses from the exhaustion of getting out of the wall. It's Saturday and Pat and Terry are having a baby checkup with Dr. Scapali, and he informs them the baby is arriving early and will be delivered within the next 2 weeks. Terry asks if he knows a particular day, as he has the election coming up. Scapali says he has no way of knowing and tells Pat to take these non-narcotic medication once every 6 hours. He warns her not to skip a dose and no lifting heavy appliances. At home, Pat is resting in bed and tells Terry she doesn't trust Dr. Scapali and mentions his cufflinks being the same symbol of the necklace Ruth bought her. Pat says Ruth is the head of a coven. Terry agrees to look into selling their house and then tells her to take her medicine. What is Ruth hiding at her home? Pat appears to take it, but when Terry leaves, she spits it out and Roxy picks it up and ends up falling straight to sleep. Pat puts her shoes on and leaves and goes over to Ruth's house and lets herself in. She is disturbed to find breast milk in the fridge. Ruth turns up and asks her what she's doing in her house. Pat confronts her about the breast milk and she says it has a lot of uses. He tells her to settle down and she'll make her some tea. To Pat's surprise, Terry walks in and asks her what she is doing out of bed. Pat accuses Terry of being in on it. He reveals the Shining Vale Ladies Auxiliary Club are endorsing him for mayor. Pat accuses him of selling their baby to be mayor of a sh*tty town. Pat has a spatula that she is pointing at Terry, and he tells her to put it down. She hits him on what Terry calls his gesturing thumb he uses on his campaign trail. She believes everyone is out to get her and she's going to see the only person she can't trust, which turns out to be her mom, Joan. She arrives at Joan's place and tells her Ruth is in a coven and her realtor, the doctor, and Terry are all in on it. She thinks drinking some really old breast milk got her pregnant, and Joan slaps her for this statement. Pat is shocked and Joan apologizes to her, saying she didn't know what else to do. Pat asks her how it felt to slap her and reveals she's wanted to do it so many times to gain her. Joan tells her to go home and smack her children. Pat admits she hates them, but also loves them. She loves the baby so much and doesn't want anyone to take it from her, and she's scared. Pat knows all these weird things are actually happening and Joan says she'll take care of her. Is Gaynor going to become a writer like her mother? Gaynor has taken her college essay to Cam for her to look at. Cam tells her it's the beginning of a great book. Gaynor says she just wants to get into college so she doesn't have to be like her mother. Cam says she is so like her mother as she's strong and fierce, and a great writer and has a gift. Cam wants her to write about what scares her. Gaynor suggests a story about sleeping with a hot exorcist who might not be real. Cam says yes please and wants 5,000 words on it. Gaynor says she doesn't want to write that because her mom writes stuff like that and it made her go crazy. Cam says that's not what made her go crazy, and claims it saved her life. Gaynor inquires about what kind of advance can she get for it. Cam tells her she's her mother's daughter. What is happening with Pat's pregnancy? Dr. Scapali and Terry turn up at Joan's, and Scapali tells Pat if she doesn't stop her nonsense she'll go back to the mental hospital. Turns out Joan told them Pat was staying here. Betrayal. Joan also randomly reveals Pat had a sister who she had to give up due to a difficult pregnancy. Pat is back home and tied up in bed. Jake has been charged with keeping an eye on her, but he's more interested in his VR headset on. Pat tells him to let her out, but Jake ignores her as he's talking to a mysterious girl in the VR headset telling him to go to the wall. Jake leaves Pat to head up there. Laird is helping Terry campaign in Shining Vale, unenthusiastically saying Phelps for mayor through a speaker. A woman with a baby is crossing the road when a bus is fast approaching her and Terry walks in the way of the bus and puts his hand out to stop it. The bus stops. Terry starts chanting "The bus stops here" over and over, and Laird carries it on. Terry climbs up on the front of the bus and tells the woman to give him the baby. He picks the baby up, and the crowd are cheering him on. Pat is having a very weird nightmare where Rosemary and a group of women are dancing and being generally strange in Pat's house. Rosemary reveals she has taken over the asylum. She also tells Pat she is the chosen one. The nightmare ends with Rosemary saying, "We will raise it. All hail the Dark One." Pat is wandering around the house still in a nightmare state and nearly falls down the stairs, but Gaynor saves her before she falls down the stairs. Pat notices Gaynor has dyed her hair and looks more like her. Maybe Gaynor is embracing being like her mother? Terry comes back home saying he has something to tell them all. He doesn't get around to saying what as he's too troubled by Pat being out of bed. Suddenly, Pat's waters break. She's now in the bath and in labor. There wasn't time to get her to the hospital, but Ruth is here to help her deliver. Pat is bleeding profusely, and Ruth says it looks like the baby is crowning and tells her to push. What happens at the end of Shining Vale Season 2? A while later, Pat is in bed and feels her stomach and knows she's given birth, but no sign of the baby. Terry enters her room and tells her the baby is fine, and it's a girl. Pat asks if she's a goat, and Terry reveals she very much is not. Ruth comes in and it's not actually her, it's a much older lady. Has Pat been imagining things? Terry reveals he is now the mayor, and they are now the first family of Shining Vale. He says they are like the Kennedys. Which is amusing because Greg Kinnear actually played Kennedy in a miniseries a few years ago. Gaynor and Jake come in, and both of them are trying to take credit for delivering the baby. Pat reminds them she was the one who gave birth and holds the baby for the first time. Gaynor says the family is a sh*t show, but they are all going to love the baby so much. Gaynor says she's glad Pat didn't die and reveals she isn't going to college and is going to try and be a writer instead, and they both hug. She is interrupted when she sees a vision of Ennio in the room. Pat tells Terry she's happy, and Ruth comes in and tells Terry he has some visitors. Pat uses the game to ask if things are going to turn out good. The game tells her to read page 111 in the book. She sees the page and says, "Oh no." Pat gets up and overhears a bunch of women fussing over the baby. They say, "All hail Mayor Phelps." Pat blurts out Terry is the devil. We then see what she saw in the book. The Devil Doctor is the title of the page, and there's an old black and white picture of a man with a baby with the words along the bottom saying Dr. Armstrong and his daughter button. The man in the picture is Terry. The episode review. Everything has been building up to this moment in the final episode, and we finally have some concrete answers as to what is really going on. However, there is still a lot more we don't know and must wait to see if a third season is announced. It would be a great shame if there wasn't, as it ends on such a cliffhanger. The creator of Shining Vale has revealed they have a plan for 7 seasons, which feels a bit too extreme, but there's definitely more story to tell with this one. This final episode of Season 2 is the best of the whole show so far. It's disturbingly brilliant with great performances from all the core cast. Let's hope Starz gives us another season to expand on the revelations in this episode.